What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and with planets just released I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a summary of the things we now know about planets. Try and help out with your first steps in the planets, especially if you're trying out in survival mode. So I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible, just to the facts. So kicking off with planet types. We now know that we have 3 planet types essentially that we've seen so far, and those are the standard Earth-like biome, a Mars-type planet, and then an alien planet. And the main difference between these is the availability of oxygen and the amount of threats you're going to find. So the Earth-like planet obviously has a lot of oxygen, a lot of gravity. Mars has very little oxygen but the same gravity. And then you finally get through to the alien planet where there is very little oxygen and the environment is very hostile. The other thing that changes between these planets is the amount of ore available. So to begin with, on your first planet, the Earth planet is probably the one you'll start off with, there is very little uranium available, and there is almost no platinum available. And what this does is very much dictate how your playstyle is going to be in the early game. So everything is now going to be reliant on solar power for the daytimes, and batteries for the night times, and small ships will be using batteries and stuff like that. Because the 3 thruster types we now have are ion, which does not work in a gravity well very well at all, to the point where you pretty much don't bother with them unless you're going into space. Hydrogen, which we're familiar with already, which is the one for getting us up into space, and then finally atmospheric, which are the ones for in the atmosphere. But these only go up to about 7,500 meters, and they do not work above that at all. So they're very efficient, but they're never going to get us the whole way to space. Hydrogen is going to have to cover that gap in between where the atmosphere drops off and the ion thrusters pick up once we're actually up into space. When it comes to getting the rarer materials and actually moving on to stuff like powered vehicles using reactors, you're going to need to look at the moons and the asteroids, because this is where the platinum and the uranium is to be found, and this is where the rarest of the resources. It is potential that there are some rare resources also available on the Sabaroid planet. Haven't really had much chance to check that out yet, but if there is, you can be sure you need to be quite advanced to even consider getting them. On top of that, with how the ores work, we now know that they are layered. There are sort of various tiers of ore under the ground. And in order to get the rarer ores, you're going to have to both dig deeper, but also find the rarer tiers. The easiest way to look out for where the ore is on the planet is to look for areas where you can visibly see darker spots on the surface. So it looks like there's rock and ore on the surface. That's normally a pretty good place to start drilling. But remember, however long you drill, you're probably not going to find any uranium. So really gear your progress around this idea of solar panels and batteries. If you were thinking about using artificial gravity to try and escape a planet, then I'm afraid that's a no-go as soon as you get into a gravity field above 0.4 G, so anything that's planet-sized rather than moon-sized, artificial gravity stops working completely. So that is now out for elevators and ship flying mechanisms and so on. So as I said, again, everything's going to come back to this idea of atmospheric thrusters, then hydrogen thrusters, then ion thrusters, as kind of a tiered system for getting off planets and actually moving around. We have been given a few new easy starts to begin the game with, if you don't fancy starting off from scratch. So we got one for each of the planets, so one on Earth, one on Mars, and one on the alien planet, and they each start you off with a base, although be aware, of course, if you're starting on the Sabaroid planet, you need to be prepared to defend yourself, because the Sabaroids themselves are pretty nasty. We now know that they can burrow, they come in packs to some extent, and if you don't kill the whole pack quickly, they'll kind of call more reinforcements in. And they also actively come and search you out. So it's not like you can have to go and find them. Sabaroids will come and find you, and when they do, they much prefer a player. But if a player is not available, they'll quite happily chomp down on your ship or your base or whatever it is that's preventing them from getting at you. However, because of this, they also drop loot, so that can be an interesting way of gaining more components when you're starting off in the early game on an alien planet. We've then got 2 other starts, one that starts you off in a solar system and one that starts you off just with a habitable planet. And both of these give you a kind of respawn ship to begin with, the main difference being that this is actually an atmospheric dropship. So they drop you from space and you come into land on your sort of first experiences in survival and try and build from there. Another threat you'll encounter, and this is not limited just to the alien planet, is pirates. Pirates are now in the game with bases and they will actively come and search you out on the planet as well. And you will slowly notice as you get more progressed that pirates start actively coming and attacking your base and raiding your base. And Keen have decided that the Sabaroids, the pirates, this is an element of threat they want in the game, and so these are not things that you can turn off at the moment. It may be that this changes in the future, but right now, the options in the options menu purely relate to stuff going on in space. So I believe that should cover the basics of the differences between then and now, the things that got added in planets. Of course, with the other advantage we got was massive, beautiful worlds to go and explore and build in, and it's certainly going to change the whole environment of space engineers having these cool planets to play on. Hopefully this video was helpful for you guys, gave you a bit of a recap or filled you in if you weren't aware of some of the changes, didn't get a chance to see the stream. If you did like the video, please hit like, please hit subscribe, it does really help me in the channel out. And if you didn't, please let me know down in the comments what I can do to change, how I can improve things to make them better. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will catch you next time.